Okay. So I'm reading my own screen to myself. So let's fix that. Thank you. All right.
Okay, that's much better.
All right. Yeah. So sometimes I think what Zoom is optimizing the individual headshots, sometimes more or less, and I never quite know. So here we go. So now I'm truly sharing the project. So this is what I did for the project. It's sort of on the side here, but we have assets. And I created, well, we had scenes originally and we had some sprites originally. So some scenes and sprites are mostly there, but I have team assets for like team 1 assets, team 2, team 3. So they can throw their stuff into separate folders. And I created a tutorial scene area. So if you double click that, you got all the tutorial scenes. So it's got the coloring scene I was working on, which is this one up here. And then I've got the test bolt. I did a whole bunch of work with bolt to create a test bolt scene. And then this was Vuforia. So this was mostly does my AR camera work. I think we still have to figure out like if I can load, say, multiple database. I think you can load multiple databases into Vuforia. So like a team 1 database, team 2 database.
Right, yes.
They'd have to use like my key or something like that, I think. So crossing fingers that works. Test bolt. That one I actually did a bunch of work on. I made a player sprite. And I don't have any of the pickable objects like we did in the prior time. This one is more like a platformer.
Okay.
So it's got like a ground. It's got watermelon platforms.
Cute.
Yeah. So if you hit play on this one, it enables the bolt macro for the player sprite. And so I have WASD keys and I have arrow keys. It changes its facing.
That's so fun.
So it took me a trick to figure that one out. And then the other part is it jumps, but it doesn't jump in the air. It doesn't double jump. It just single jumps.
Okay.
And then you can jump, and then you can try for like I'm gonna, yeah. So it has the physics of all the spinning and everything.
Oh, that's so fun.
So like there, I'm not able. I can move when I'm in this weird spot, but like the picture is not ground.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm stuck unless I move my sprite. And I have to jump over this one, land back, and then I have to try to like, can I get there if I put enough momentum? So I can go like, I'm going to double, can I do it? Jump. No, I have to jump and go, because you can influence the speed after jumping. So there's lots of stuff. And then you can jump on top of the pineapple.
Mm-hmm.
And then gravity and friction might keep you in place. So I can't jump off, but I can kind of push myself to sort of flop off. So that's all in the bolt thing now. So
cool.
What I ended up doing there was I made player sprite with the polygon and the rigid body colliders.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it sort of got its shape. Then the flow graph is the crazy stuff. So this is not terrible, actually. It turned out, it looks like a bunch of things, but it's not so much. So what happens is update event. It says, get me my horizontal inputs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the A and the D key or the arrow keys, or if you're like wherever you have left and right, it maps it automatically to the horizontal axis.
Okay.
And I did the delta time trick so that the speed is multiplied by delta time, which is then multiplied by the amount you're pressing. That gives you a movement value. So you get your movement value, so you're able to move. So it's like, okay, this arrow key stuff is setting my speeds. Then I got to run over here to get movement. And what this one does is it says, I've got a rigid body with a certain velocity. Let's get that information about the velocity in the y direction. What it does, that one says, if I'm falling, keep the velocity the same. So it's sort of essentially a pass through that says gravity pass the value of y, which is gravity, over to y. So that's like a 1-to-1. Then the other one says, I've got a movement speed. Get my variable from x, make it a vector, and use that vector to change the velocity of the rigid body. So since I have the arrow key movement information, it just pushes it to the left or pushes it to the right. Then the difference is if we get the direction, we can flip it. You can say, so if it had an eyeball, you could flip the sprite and would have the eyeball in the other way. But we're a flower, so left and right on a flower are harder to see.
Right.
So this is the comparison. It says if A is less than B or A equals B. So A equals B actually is something like 0. I have no movement.
Okay.
If A less than B, I'm either going backwards or I'm going forwards.
Mhm.
And those are floats of a -1 or a 1. And that basically, -1 is going to the left, +1 is going to the right. That makes a new vector 3, and only x is affected, and y is just set to 1, z is set to 1. So what that does is it says, give me a vector that represents my direction. Then I had to do a magic trick. Magic trick was local scale here, is that I scaled the images down by 25%.
Okay.
So what would happen is when I multiply by 1 for scale, it goes back to its original scale at 1.
Mhm.
So I would start moving around and suddenly I would change directions and I would have a big flower.
Ah, okay.
So suddenly you'd be like, I changed direction and poof, big flower. Whoa. Where'd that come from? And that's because it took the scale from the multiply.
Mhm.
So what I did was I said, let's get the scale and multiply it by that vector.
Right.
So like a 1 times a 1 is fine. 1 times 0.25 is still 0.25. So I passed on through with the multiply here, that local scale data. So
Okay.
25% stays 25% over here. The one thing that was really crazy was I needed an absolute value of x. Because what was happening was when I went backwards, it would give me a -1 times, say, the negative direction. So I get
Right.
-2 for the speed for going to the left. The very next update, it would multiply negative times negative, which would give me a positive, and it would flip it back.
Okay.
So what happens is it's because it's not negative times negative becomes a positive, and then it just created an alternation.
Mhm.
It was really weird. I was like, what's going on here? So I figured if I got the absolute value, then basically multiplied that times this, that gets you the local scale is now set to the flipped sprite.
Okay.
So that was a little bit of a trick. And then jump is its own little fun thing. So jump is on the jump button, so spacebar down. Then on true, spacebar is down, add force of an impulse of 8. And then I have something called the ground check. I made something called the super unit.
Mhm.
And the super unit has the code for checking if you're on the ground. So essentially it says, if you're on the ground, you can jump. Otherwise, nothing happens. There's nothing for
Okay.
you. And so
That
you
makes
can,
sense.
yeah. So now that set up the code for this. So the code is set up so that this guy turns gravity on, can jump, only jumps on things that are platforms. So I
Right.
had to make platforms. So that was the watermelon platforms. And I made a ground platform or ground. So what I did was I used layers and I created the platform layer.
Mhm.
So anything in the platform layer, is something you can like jump off of.
Okay. How does it check, like, how does ground check work?
Okay. So if I go to macros, ground check is over here.
Okay.
And let me make this big. So ground check does this interesting thing. It says, get me the position of my sprite, my player, and use something called the circle cast. So ray cast is basically a pixel point shot through wherever the mouse is. The circle cast is, instead of it being a pixel point, it's an actual circle, and you shoot the circle in some direction.
Okay.
So in this 2D world, I'm actually shooting it -1. -1 means down.
Mhm.
So I shoot it down a distance of like 0.4, and it's a 0.4 radius circle. And I say only include stuff on the layer mask. So the circle cast only recognizes things that are a platform.
Okay.
So it shoots a circle down by your feet, and now that's true or false, it uses the raycast here to say I hit something. Did I hit the ground? So the player platform information like kind of scales up, comes over, says, oh, yep, on the true category of the not equal. So if null is not equal to grounded, then it's a false. If it is equal, then grounded, the output variable, turns into, yep, you're on the ground.
Okay.
So the raycast hit 2D, it exposes that information. We use our collider data and say, as long as the collider is not null, you are on the ground, provided you're on the platform layer.
That makes sense.
Yep. So the difference is this is a super unit. So I was able to have like a variable called grounded as an output.
Mhm.
And now I can, like, anytime I want to know if I'm on the ground, I can grab the grounded macro and just drag it into my code.
Okay.
So that's what I did over in the other spot. So, whoops. So here's the character controller, and I just took one of my macros, and that was the ground check one, and I just brought it over, and then I wired it in.
Okay, cool.
So it's pretty neat. You can just grab ground check now, and the character controller can be put on anything that you want to be your player.
Mhm.
And I made little prefabs. So now you can right click on it and unpack your prefab and all that. And then I made Pineapple a prefab just for fun. So all of those things are in place. So the macros are in a little macro folder. All this is under tutorial scenes. So they could grab this stuff or we could grab it and throw it in different places. But right now I just threw it all under tutorials.
Okay.
And the sprites that I brought in for this one were just I only brought in the one that was the PNG file rather than the Photoshop file.
Okay.
So I'd like the students to work through the Photoshop file or something. I'm not quite sure. I have to figure out they kind of need to. So this is like the platformer one. I've got some examples for the platformer. So that was one, and then let's see what else. Oh, the other scenes in here, coloring. So I started working on coloring. This one is I finally figured out a really important thing about sprites. So sprites, when you bring them in, you can do a pixels per unit. So beforehand, I brought in everything at original pixels, like at 100 per unit, which is kind of the default. So all of the pictures I brought in were super big.
Mhm.
So in this case, I scaled it to like 140 for this one. And then this one, I scaled it to 390 pixel units because the coloring book image was a lot smaller than the image of the wall.
Okay.
So to make them sprites, I had to get them so that they're approximately the same size and they overlap. So I can basically turn off and on these different pieces. So these, and then you can, oops, I put it inside. Oh, right. And then this was a thing, the sortable layers, like that's a background layer.
Right.
And that was a default layer. So you can, I think the idea is you can either pick an order for them to be in. That one's on background. This one was on default, but let's say it was on overlay.
Would it be the other way around with Mapleful being the background?
Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, Mapleful. Okay, so Mapleful should be the background. Yep. And then Burn Coloring Book should be the overlay. Okay. And there is some weirdness going on.
What are their XYZ positions?
Yeah, they're doing that thing where they're overlapping each other.
Right.
Should be the sorting. Sorting layers. Definitely one's like one's on top or behind the other. Well, the thing about this was that they really only get to be one sprite. So the problem right now is your coloring book is like you can only color the one thing.
Right. So you'd have to go into Photoshop or something and separate it into multiple sprites.
Yep. So I've made some progress in that. So I don't know if so I can quit this one. I can sort of save that. Okay. So then I went to Inkscape because the coloring book one can work out pretty well.
Right.
Because this ought to work. That's the thing. Like this really ought to work. So I played around with the settings under path trace bitmap. I went to multiple, and then I told it to look for grays. And then I did an OK. Clicked it, and then let's see, it's still working a little bit. Oh, it did it. So I've got two images over here. So if I pull, I'm going to zoom. Let's see here. Scroll up. Click to that. I'm going to move this one up. So you'll see I've got everything with the paths on them.
Mm-hmm.
So this image works appropriately. Like that actually works pretty well for this.
Right.
So I'm going to delete this one. And what I discovered So I made a copy or backup of it over here. And the part that this needs to, the hard part, like why I had to keep playing around till I found the right trace bitmap option, is that when you go to path, you have to sell it to break apart the path. And what was happening in all the other modes, these path pieces would be, they'd all turn black like that.
Ah, okay.
So let's see. So, I had solved this problem. Let me delete everything out of here. So, let's get rid of that. I may have so many copies. Who knows what's going on? All right. Come back to here. Oh, there we go. So the one that I did with Grace. Whew. All right. So what you'll see is it didn't automatically turn into like crazy colors or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And now if I click, it's going to have a little red line and a path every place that we've got stuff traced out.
That's cool.
So there are still some tricky things about this. So like that's, oops, and let's go. All right. So if I grab this, oh, let me go to the grab handle. So if I grab it, I now have like this white piece that you can't tell that I grabbed, but I totally grabbed. But as I do this, it should. I'm having some moment here. All right. So I can grab these zones. And if I'm not careful, I grab all the zones. I was pretty sure I told it to break apart. Nope. So this is the classic trouble.
Right.
I had it working. Maybe I broke it apart too much. But maybe I didn't have it working. It just looked like it worked. Because one of the really important parts is that you need these open white areas.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be able to go in and find them wherever they are. But there's some places here that aren't broken apart. So what would end up happening is you end up having to go in and do these crazy edits. Essentially, you have to break like a piece of the, like you have to break the path in some direction.
Mm-hmm.
So this is still doable because you have like, I can break my path parts apart. I can remove nodes. It's like a nice little node editor right here where you just fix all the stuff you want. I mean, it traced the lines really well, but what happens, what really goes wrong is when you do path break apart, it breaks some of the paths. So those little edges of a path, it's going to pick some of them and they're going to pick the wrong fill value. So if I select, say, this area here, it's all like filled in with black, and you'll notice I can turn off the fill. So turn off the fill, go over to the stroke. And then depending on what this is, you have to actually put the stroke back. And then the other part is these are layered on top of each other sometimes instead of just like Like, yeah, so the break apart breaks them and then fills them incorrectly. So that is actually okay. So we're back to the pain of Inkscape being you just have the tedium of having to figure it out.
Right.
This will work. But you have to break apart your pieces.
Mhm.
So one question is, we could have the students break apart their pieces in Inkscape, or there's Illustrator.
Illustrator also wouldn't be available to them, I think.
So Inkscape being free should be available.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think
somebody on the team is going to have to take Inkscape and just go through it. As then I did the same setup over here with Illustrator. Whoops. Oh, this is just absolutely amazing. My Illustrator grabbed the tab of the image out of Illustrator. So I ripped this off and out. Redock. All right, it should redock. Alt save. Yeah. So essentially in the other model, they have to go through and find and then start cutting the images so that the parts are free. And you need both the dark lines and you need the light lines sort of separated from each other.
Right.
All right. So this one has a pretty good default selector. So I ran through, placed this image in. Let's see. This is the image itself. Okay. All right. This one hasn't. So you place the image using file place. Then you can go over to object image trace. And you can do different things with image trace. All right. So I've selected the image, and over in image trace land, you've got all these different options. So I tried default. Oh, right. Smart blur. That's actually, it seems to be like the one thing that I didn't do in the other one for tracing lines was add a blur. It's pretty common for edge finding to blur the edges a little. All right. And then this is pretty cool. Like even this does a good job basically. So I have to expand my action panel. And then it's got, you can isolate or ungroup. All of these work. So I'm going to ungroup. That was the break apart business.
Right.
But now I have like, here's a coloring area. Here's another coloring area. So I have the insides of these coloring areas, or like I can grab different parts of this and build out what I want to color.
Right.
Or I can grab strokes. So it did a really good job of kind of isolating, but still here you'd have to cut apart some pieces.
Right. Yeah, this does look like it broke apart really well.
But so like you can get these little details here, but it just isn't quite, none of these things are, all of them seem to have a batch of work that you got to do.
Right.
And then the other part would be like, if you can't, let's say you could put it into Photoshop, but the next thing to do with this is actually organize the sub images. So you'd
Mhm.
want to like keep a copy of it all together like this, for instance. But if you're going to use these pieces, you have to be able to separate them.
Right. With Photoshop, I think the easiest way to do it would be to select each of the white spots and then just cut it into a new layer
Mm-hmm.
and then import the entire Photoshop file.
Yeah. So one of the things that Illustrator lets you do is distribute your objects.
Hmm.
So if I say select all here, and then I go to the distribute panel, I can space them downwards. So things get really crazy looking,
Okay.
but it'll automatically start organizing separately these things.
Mhm.
There we go. So I distributed one direction. So you can see the line art is distributed one way and the white space is distributed another.
Right.
So so the Photoshop allows you to like have all of these as separate sprites
Hmm.
and keep their location. You know what? There's a vector importer too. Like if we took this and imported into say Blender, for instance, it would know about the white spaces and the lines as well.
Right. Hmm.
But yeah, if we look at this, you can see, oops. So these are all the tiny little, like the areas that you want to color in are all the white spaces.
Hmm.
And the coloring book lines are all the stuff that's not, like these are your coloring book lines.
Right.
So I think you're onto something about selecting all of let's say you selected all of the white area.
Yeah, because I think like all of the black lines would need to be one layer together because they're the main frame of the image.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'd want to separate each of the white pieces so that you can fill each of them in separately.
Mm-hmm. So let's see, what would be so then
So before you distribute, is there a way to select by color and then group all of the black pieces together?
I think you are correct. Yes, 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 yes. Yes. So I gotta find between my mouses. I have to find where did I put everything. There it is. All right. So I undid that distribution.
Hmm.
So one of the things you can do is you can click on an area and then you can go over to the select feature and you can say like same fill color. So if I save all the same fill color, I should be able to click this and move this down. And now
Cool.
that is all the white portions. It should be all the white portions. So if I click in here, yeah.
So if you can redistribute those so that you can line them up kind of like a spreadsheet in a grid,
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be perfect for import because then you can just create little boxes and select all of them in the sprite editor.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think if anything recognizes. What? Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what's recognizable and not.
Hmm.
I'm wondering because what I'm concerned about is actually these little zones here.
Right, yeah.
The little teeny tiny things start turning like litter everywhere, and you can't tell what's going on.
For this, you might want to just group all of them together
Hmm.
rather than having each one be able to be individually colored. Maybe like the zone, like that feather would all be the same color,
Mhm. Yeah, you could make bigger groupings.
right?
Absolutely. You just have to be able to find your parts. And I think let's look at some of the import and export features. So like if I did save, if I did a save as here. Format Adobe Illustrator, SVG. So I was wondering about Unity's SVG or scalar graphic support, because if it did, it would recognize, it would actually store this properly and open it properly. If I do export, no, save as, there was yeah, I think there's an open Illustrator in Photoshop feature. So let me save this real quick. I think I saved it. So I've been working on the JK Lyons stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've been having, and it turned out that the artist took all of these photos, but didn't take a straight on front, back, left, right shot. Or the photographer.
That sounds about right.
So I ran into some trouble. Okay. So here I'm opening this one up. It's giving me an import PDF message, actually. This is pretty high resolution. Look at those pixels. I have a feeling it just took the black lines.
It did, yeah. Is it because the other parts weren't on the canvas?
I bet so. Whoops. But this is actually, I mean, you do want these.
Right.
So, because it's more like, because it's all figuring out that like, these are our bounding areas,
Mm-hmm.
but this is all one. This has all become one item, not broken out into multiple layers.
Right. Which should be fine.
Hmm. All right. Let me. I guess I'm gonna go out to the Google land. What was the? So one of them is importing Illustrator to Photoshop.
Ah,
So that one has a select file, click export.
that makes sense.
All right, so that's an official export process. Unity import SVG. So it's SVG importer. Okay. Okay, I close the one. All right, so this is, see, it has all these nice vector lines and everything there. I wonder something about the artboard. They have these artboards that are the size of things. Convert to artboards, flip to artwork bounds, fit to selected art. How about fit to artwork bounds? Classic.
I mean, it did it. You just can't see it because it's not transparent.
Yeah, I'm gonna do export as, and then we're gonna go over to
SVG.
We're going to do both. So here's our SVG. It's SVG, preserve, layer names. See, we don't have layers.
Oh.
Okay. And then the other one is export as, and this one's going to be Photoshop.
Right.
If I can find it. Here it is, Photoshop. Right layers. It's got CMYK as the color mode. I didn't really pay attention to color mode. Photoshop. All right. So this time we're going to open up that exported Photoshop. Here we go. All right.
Oh, this is much better.
So, I mean, it did bring this over.
Right.
It didn't, it's not separated these into layers, but that's the interesting thing, right? Could we separate all of those white things into their own layers?
Maybe with a quick select, it'll be able to easily recognize it.
Let's see. Let's see here. Is it this one? I'm gonna do Illustrator. Actually, I don't know what quick select does or anything.
Try just separate image into layers, or I can also search. I have a computer.
Let's see here. There is a release to layers option in the layers panel. Make sure the layer is active and none of the shapes are selected. Then use release to layers. This will add each shape to a new sublayer. Oh, release layers. Okay, so I would go to layers. No way, they're already here, but it's not released as a layer. Let's see, was that the right click?
Is there a layers menu or something?
There's a bunch of menus they've hidden around. Hide bounding boxes. Let's see. There's a release to layers options in the layers menu panel. So, oh, here. All right. So that released these all to different layers here.
Oh.
I like the colors. That's pretty cool. And now I can see, like, as we're mousing over the layers.
Cool, everything seems separated.
Yeah. So then we want to go back to Photoshop. Oops. I want to close this one because I'm going to save over it. Hold it to right layers. And I mean, Photoshop supports these sub layers too. Let's see, file, open. I really want to see. It's doing something.
It is doing something. So exciting. Is everything a separate layer?
It's claiming. So the other thing that I can do is,
Select something and see what layer gets highlighted.
yeah, how about that? Do I have to do a break apart? Oh, no.
481. That seems like a lot.
It's, I think it's all of these little pieces here. And it's all the little pieces in the neck. So wondering about is if I should grab this one and try to layer it back on top of the other. Oh, hold it. These are also separated out too.
Right, yeah.
Whoa.
So if you quick select them, then you can merge all of the layers together, I think. Or just
Or
not
I could do
quick
the
select.
export again. There might be a good reason to do the export again. You know how I had pulled this as a separate thing?
Yeah.
I could pull these back together as one unit here.
Mhm.
All right. So I could say some sort of merge. There's one trick which is like add all the layers back together again.
Right.
So like if I put these all back on a layer, that's going to be. But I also want to merge these all back together. Because what, you know what? Undo is probably where I'm going to go. No, should I go back to undo? No, I need to make sure these are all like one path.
Mm-hmm.
Should be path.
Join.
Ah, thank you. The very first option. The selected cannot be joined as they're invalid objects, compound path, closed paths, text objects. It does this thing where it gives me a big complaint. And then darn. I might have to. We had a menu, layer menu, how about merge, make clipping. Collect a new layer. I want to pull these all back together. Flatten artwork. I think that's it. All right. So that put them back in the same, should have put them back in the same. Darn. This should be like, so convert to shape, pattern. So this, what the whole goal here would be to join it together. So you're giving me a good solution in the other thing. What I thought about doing here was moving this whole area. Oh, let's do it. Let's try it this way. Object.
Can you group them first and then join them?
Oh, that's a good question. Ooh, hold it. That grouping just did me a big favor, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it put them all in the same layer somewhere.
Yes. If you go up, there's a thing amongst all of the layers called group.
Ah. Well, we like the group. So now if I click over here, it should sort of, well, they are grouped.
You can try joining them now and seeing if that works.
Oh yeah, thanks again.
Nope.
Yeah. Well, the big idea was to be able to move them together and put them back in that spot when they were all together, essentially.
Right.
So that, because what it'll do is it'll lay it out, it'll put them all in the layers, and then Photoshop will import all the layers separately. Let's see. Merge layers. Illustrator, or on the join paths option. That's not quite it. Dope. So if I had only separated out only some of these.
If you go back into Photoshop, you may be able to select everything by color and then combine it.
So I have all of these now.
I don't know if you can merge selected.
Oops. Come on. What am I doing?
In theory, it should be one layer now.
I'm having lag or something.
I think so, yeah. You should be able to just like click on it and then move it. You shouldn't have to select if it's one layer.
So let's look at that layer business real quick. We definitely got it to be one layer.
Cool.
And try to stop at the moment and then sort of use the keyboard. It's just a hair. It'd be one to the right.
I think you selected one of the white layers.
Oh, hold it. One layer we need.
If you just click on one of the black pieces, I think it should select the red layer again. Yeah.
Okay, let's rename it too. Solid background. Close. All right, solid background. Okay, I'm back to selecting it. I was going to tap one over. And I think another one over. I didn't see it move.
I didn't either.
One more. One more.
I can't tell if it's doing anything.
It's like doing every other one. And then I think it's one more down. One more down. One more down. See, if I could have figured this out in Illustrator, we wouldn't be doing this now. All right, that looks close enough. File. So the other part about this is going to be pretty ugly stuff. And if it, see the part about vector graphics is they're super memory friendly.
Right.
Whereas pixels are not as memory friendly. So what is our scale here, right? Let's see, document properties would be really the place to go. Or
if you go to image, I think there's canvas size.
So we're at 4,700 pixels by 3018 pixels. That's gonna like really hurt.
Did your menu pop up somewhere else?
Oh, yes, it did. I'm sorry. So what's been happening is I have a main screen and then I move this to the screen that I'm working on and then everything pops up to the main screen. All right, so we need to lower the resolution here.
Yes.
It's got a dots per inch about 150. This is going to be like on a phone or something.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the common Pixel 3a screen resolution? Check my phone. It's 443 pixels per inch. That's humongous. Its resolution is 2880 by 180. So this actually the 2280 by 180.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably what we're looking for.
Right, yeah.
So let's go back. Let's see if we can fix the resolution up. So the width, 2280 is what I saw.
Yes.
2280.
And that should be okay because we need to change the height anyway
Mm-hmm.
based on the canvas.
Yeah, hang on one second though, because I realized this was originally like a bigger, it was a double tall image.
Yeah.
So we need to now under image, I think I selected under image, we need to sort of say image artboard to screen size or something. But I'm getting some lag. This time it's a canvas size question.
There should also be an option to crop. It should be under image, I think. There is, or trim.
Should be like trim to selection.
If you trim away the transparent pixels, I think that'll do the same thing.
All right, that seems good. Cool. Go back to image size now. Let's look at that madness.
Mm-hmm.
We're already half the size we were before.
Right.
2280. All right, so we did lose some pixels by. We want to do 1080 on the height. The width is most important.
It does it proportionally, so
Yeah.
I think this should be fine.
So this is the pixels per inch is another tactic. But let's go here. Like we'll save all this stuff. All right. So file, save. Now save as. And it was a large document format. Maximize compatibility. Cool. Unity Hub. The Burn class. All right. So we want to bring that in. Maple. This one, the PSB file. Yeah. So one of the next things we'll have to do is start working on the framing piece of this. All right, so we have a thing.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to look.
The layers look good.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. We do have all of this stuff. So what this one did, you know how like I kept throwing the thing and get the whole picture and all the parts.
Mhm.
All right, scrolling through here, it looks like this is every tiny little piece. I'm gonna take a page from what you said. I'm gonna try this thing where we're just gonna grab the whole thing and drag it over. So I should be able to drag that into the scene.
Mhm.
Unclear.
It didn't do the thing. I don't know why.
Okay, now it.
There it is.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It looks good.
Okay.
Now you
so,
should, in theory, be able to apply the materials to the individual objects.
Mm-hmm. And now we have like a bazillion objects, which is what we wanted.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, my
Puppy.
dog. Sorry, I didn't have my cam ready. He came in and got his squeak toy.
Wow, it's horrible.
He's really enjoying squeaks and stuff.
That's so good.
So here, this is an interesting one. Was I had to, in order to get those other images in here, I did all that scaling work.
Hmm.
We did a lot of pre-scaling work by bringing the image down.
Right.
So I could just sort of grab the handle here and just move it. It totally works. Totally
Yeah.
works. But I want to grab the whole thing, and I want to grab its handle and move it down. So like this would be, yeah, here we go. All right, so we've got a couple of features. One is turning off and on parts of the picture. And then the other part is being able to color the picture as well. So in order to color stuff, usually you try to grab materials and grab them on there.
Hmm.
So I have a blue material, and if I remember correctly, that was like this piece here was blue. You know, so you're kind of hovering over, trying to get your color to land on the item. So what we want to be able to do is like click on something, and like here we found it. I'm gonna turn it off and on so you can see through it or not. So if I want to put a blue on it, I should be able to just drag and move blue right to there.
You should. For some reason, it's not selecting it though.
You know, there's another way. Is like that's that piece, right? I can drag it over to the add component layer.
Yes.
And then let's say I wanted it to be orange. So this is where the coding or the bolt stuff that we're going to do should make it just like change its color, no problem.
What happened there? Because it almost became transparent.
Well, something, let me undo a little bit. And I know at the top here, I've got burn coloring book. Let's hide that. So now we only have the one thing. So let's say, so this is something about sprites and colors.
Do you think it has something to do with the sorting layer that everything's on?
Well, this is definitely, could be, this is on the right now we're on the default layer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
If you select the main object and maybe switch that one's layer, it might switch all of them.
oh, I think it will. So if we come up here and go to our big prefab and we make it not a, Oh, you know, the big one doesn't have a sortable layer.
I see. Okay.
That's pretty interesting. You'd have to select everybody inside. So I would do something like select this one, scroll to the bottom, that, and then I would have to come up to sortable layer. And I could say overlay, for instance.
Mhm.
So
And then
now
maybe change the order to also be 0 because I saw that a lot of them were in the hundreds.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's look at this. If I drop down here, add sorting layer, it gives me the menu to work with them.
Mhm.
So what were you saying?
Oh, not that. If you go back and you click on one of the layers, like say layer 477,
Mm-hmm.
The order in the layer is 10, but I think a lot of them were like in the hundreds. So I don't know if that'll like push them back.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, this I don't know. Like it is in the layer in a particular order. The
Mhm.
only one that really needs like this one here, the background,
Right.
that one we would normally put in the background. Like that one would end up being in our background layer.
Mhm.
So like our fillable color areas would be on top. I'm gonna do a save in case of crash. I blew up some stuff the other night and I got extra paranoid. All
Yep.
right. Okay, so whenever I click, right, I should be able to click on, okay, now I totally have layer 290 selected, right?
Mhm.
Then there's a color, see there's color for a sprite and material for a sprite. And there is something, all right, it took me a couple clicks to find that one. So if I click here, it's going to go up to the top and I
Mhm.
click again, and now I should be on the layer that I picked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then, oh, we're seeing this layer here is on top of, see, that's on top of the layer. So if we changed our sorting number, you'd have to move this below that.
Right.
And then the crazy stuff, like some of the things that have to be edited would be like these little things here.
Mhm.
If I double click, like if I want that to be blue, it should be,
That turned something blue. That was the solid background. That was the black line.
Okay. So I sort of missed. So I hit undo there. So there's a question about using materials and another question about using these colors.
I believe that the way they did it in the tutorial was change the color value.
Yeah. So I think I'm doing something a little bit odd. Click here. Unity 2D material. So it's sprite renderer, you know how to make a sprite to material. So this is I'm worried that like standard materials don't apply to sprites. That's what I'm worried about. So like if I'm doing a sprite, I should just set the color of the sprite rather than the material of the sprite.
I think so. I think that would be a better way to do it.
It's got a there's a technical answer because like if I made this image 3D, for instance,
Mhm.
then I would be able to use that 3D information to like give it not just a color, I could give it the texture of something.
Mhm.
But sprites might not support textures. Define the vertex color of the sprite, which tints or recolors the sprite's image. Use color picker to set the vertex color. I'm wondering. This is the issue about coloring. Like a gradient. That's maybe I can find it that way. Unity sprite gradient. Yep. The dog came over, and now he's wandering under the desk looking to see if I've dropped food.
What a good dog.
Yeah, doing all the good dog things. He's pretty awesome. I think that you mostly with sprites you have to design the color and everything that you want in the Photoshop program,
Mhm.
and you bring it over, and you can fill it with a single color. If you want to do more fancier stuff, you have to use materials, and the materials, if I only light properly under 3D objects. So there's a weird tech problem here. So I think, like you were saying, just if we just drag and drop color values, they'd have a color palette with a color value on it.
Mhm.
That should do it. It looks to me like it selects the parent. Where's remove? Is it reset or remove? Oh, I reset the material. I want to remove the material. Edit shader, select material. What in the world? Losing my mind. Remove material from sprite. Boy, things are slowing down on my system. All right, how to remove material from object. This doesn't make any sense. Like why I can't just do remove component. Nice. A little piece of code will do it.
It's really weird that you can't just remove the component though.
Normally you would just right click over here.
Reset?
It actually reset the blue material that I made. Now, usually the little
and it's
wheels.
not in the little setting thing?
Huh.
And you can't just press the delete key on it.
It's actually. Let me just keep hitting undo.
Oh, it's because it has a default material.
Oh,
So
it's
it
a
needs to have a
sprite.
material on it at all times.
Oh, it's a sprite's default material. So if let me look at materials, create sprite, library, atlas. Sprite's default. I'm wondering if the sprite's default is a particular shader.
If you click on it.
Oh.
I think you should be able to open it up and get information.
So here, material, sprite's default.
Yeah, if you like double click, I think it should take you to where it is.
Yeah, there we go.
Where it exists.
Tint, pixel snap. Oh yeah, that's exactly the deal. The sprite's default is actually a sprites thing with rendering information about rendering your sprite. Okay. So when I put a regular material on it, it basically takes what it matches or knows and jumps it on. But there really is a sprite material someplace in the system. Yeah, digs down into the system someplace to find the sprite material. I'd have to look at the material information, but I think in terms of what the students need to do, we got it worked out.
Right.
Because they could just sort of set it up with a color wheel and some other mechanics to color this in.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would actually like bolt or programmatically like select the color, touch the thing, it would put the color into it.
Right.
So we still have to work through some of the mechanics of it, but in terms of it being like possible to color something, it is now possible to color something. And some of this is really ugly looking stuff because it's like layer this, that, and the other thing. And it would be like, if you were labeling it, it'd be like wing part, row one, feather one.
Right.
Really hard to label it all. So I've left all this stuff as default as possible.
It would also be good to like go into it and make sure the things that you want grouped together are grouped together.
Yeah. So another option here is I could bring in drag the origin file, the file that we just worked with in here.
Mm-hmm.
So the students would have access to it. So like if I brought it into like macros, prefabs, and it'd be like
Sprites.
Yeah, I could move it. Well, we actually have, this is the
Yeah,
PSB
the PSB
file.
file would be.
They could just export that, like reveal in Finder, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So if they reveal this in Finder, yeah, it is the PSB file, and you could actually edit that in Photoshop if they have access to Photoshop.
This is true. The only note there is if they are going to do that, it would be a good idea to make a copy of it and then drag that to wherever they want to work on it. Because if they drag it directly from the folder and take it out of the project, then it will no longer exist in the project.
You need to take the copy out, work on the copy. Yep. Otherwise, yeah, as soon as that pulls, it's going to actually erase it out of the example scene and everything.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we've got the reference photos for that group in here. So I'd say there's materials for those groups. That's kind of on the good news category.
Yeah.
I might have to go around Rutgers looking for people who have access to Photoshop for students.
Mostly I think Mason Gross does, and it's available in all of the computer labs.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll figure out that. But this is like, so I kind of finally got past the program to having something inside of here. And then the next part up would be setting the paint paint picker and being able to select a color, paint a color. Like that's the mechanic that I want to make for that one. And then they've got like the one group storyboard. Oh, you didn't see last week's storyboards and stuff. Oh my goodness. Do you want to take an extra second here and I'll show you?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool if I can figure out where I just hid my thing for me. Go here. I'm going to go find the Miro board. Oops, got to type properly. Come on. I can type Miro wrong a whole bunch. All right, let's see here. These storyboards were pretty cool. So the brainstorming board. Yeah. All right. Nope. So this is the coloring book group. And this was the storyboard that they put together. I think you must have worked with them last week. Or a week before last. They mentioned talking to you.
Yeah, I might have.
But the start activity, they drew a little person, or I don't, you know, however, whatever this art is, like they all pick good stuff. Like start.
It's really cute.
Scan mural, and then it's like the mural thing, activity, start screen, introductions or instructions. I'll zoom in a little tighter. So then they're like, here's the coloring page. You want to select a bird. So they want you to actually select a bird from the thing and color in the bird or something.
That's so cute.
And then they drew their own color wheel, or, you know, like I actually would love to copy the whole color wheel style and the paint bucket, you know, like it would be really fun. And then they have a little like version of the
zoom and begin coloring.
Yep. And then they drew like some icons for like their color stuff. And I put some little questions in here about like, you know, do you want color, or you want texture and color? So, and then they want the poem read. So they've got a little thing here so people could read the poem. Information about what you're building and making, go through, make that, and then like you complete your custom bird and then you save and share.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
Their storyboard is absolutely adorable.
Yep. So like they have a reaction here. So I'm wondering if they use that storyboarder or something, but whatever their choices are, like however I'm like, this is cool. Good job.
Yeah,
like
it is really good.
Yep. So that group, like that's what I had in mind when I was like thinking about this. Team 3, yep, that's them. Oops. Classic. So I was really pleased with that group, and all of them did really cool stuff. The platformer group needs to think a little more. Like they were like, well, we got to figure out how we want to engage this as our platform.
Right.
So that's why I did the platform tutorial. So that should be good there. Team 2, this is the scavenger hunt. I think they're still figuring it out. I think this one's going to be like a Vuforia type thing.
Right.
But I'm not quite sure how it will all turn out yet. So I'm looking for updates from them. And then the other group, this group has a pretty good idea of like kind of what they want to do. They're kind of making the mural, like the people are actually getting like a copy of the mural and painting it.
Okay.
And they're going to place the mural in the sculpture garden, essentially.
Okay.
So I think that's a pretty cool idea. And then these are like some of the shots that are just the general references. But this is where I need that dead on left, front, back, right.
Right.
'Cause then I can use, I could take this type of images and go from like Illustrator to Blender. From Blender, make them 3D, and then bring them in. And then the way that we're coloring, you just have a 3D coloring option.
Right.
Still a little tricky, but
it's very possible that Dan has something like that, because before they were assembled, they might have taken shots of them on their sides.
yeah, I asked Dan. He's got an email from me on that one.
Okay.
So we're good there. Team 2 has 2 areas. That also is why I'm confused about Team 2. Team 2.
I think one was just like a planning thing, and one is where they're actually mapping out the places.
Yeah, this was the textual storyboard.
Yeah.
So I this week I asked for sort of more of a visual, sort of take me through what you think people are seeing.
Yeah.
And I think that will help pull this one together. So I would say about half of the groups are closing in on stuff. The other half of the groups are close but need to work on visuals.
Right.
And it's getting there. And then this was that sort of the global app thing that I had them map out the other time. So I think we need to get some time in to sort of work on what the main introductory stuff will be.
Right.
So that's our goal, my, etc., whatever. That'll this will help us get it, because I want to frame it.
Right.
And this is about the right week to get the framing done too. So, all right. So you're caught up on all of the various pieces that I put together, and then I would show you like the way it's like such a long tail to get to the final step in here.
Right.
So here's GitHub. It's like we did all of that work. So I'm gonna take Unity. I'm gonna quit out of Unity. Hopefully we saved it. And so this is the added Photoshop sprites to coloring scene, right? So I'll just summarize that. I'll commit that to net. It's committed to the local branch, but I want to give it out to people. So I want to push it out to the origin. So there's a copy of it now out on GitHub when that finishes. And then it gives me the option to do a pull request. And the pull request is to get it into the main of the project. And this is a little bit of a detour for a pretty crazy reason. Watch what happens. It actually did the pull request all the way over to Rutgers Grid.
Okay.
So it knows that the parent of all the projects is Rutgers Grid.
Right.
I'm a little worried about that because then I have to pull it from that one to the other one.
Oh, is it not going through the social engagement first?
No, because it's pulling that branch up to here.
Okay.
So it's a little confusing. So I'll show you the trick. Turns out there's a trick now. All right, so we did that branch pushing. We can create a pull request, but we want to get it into the main space. So what I can do is I can check out main, then go to main, and I'll say choose a branch to merge into main. So this is not the normal way, because this is like it'd be like you know, telling people, oh yeah, I did this thing and I'm going to merge it all myself, don't worry about it. Whereas a pull request gives everyone an opportunity to fix it up.
Right.
And so what I think's going on is the upstream and the origin. But finally, anyway, let's merge in our image coloring. So here's my recent branch. Merge this into main. And so I can say, oh, actually I just successfully merged it. Boom. And then it gives me push origin, which is fine. Like now I'm going to push this up to the origin. And that actually, oh, that's what's going on. Origin is the social media, social with XR.
Mhm.
Upstream is Rutgers Grid. That's what's going on. So when I go down into here, you'll see recent branches, other branches. Upstream,
Right.
that's pretty much Rutgers Grid. Origin is whatever place we're working out of.
Okay.
Okay, so this makes a lot of sense. So I've kind of gone the long way around to get it there, but now if I want to see what's going on to understand what happened, I need to go to View GitHub. Now that I'm here, I have this, I merged it into main and we're looking at main. And it says it's 5 commits ahead of Rutgers and Grid. So that's where like, okay, we want Rutgers Grid to be updated. Let's hit a pull request. And so if I create that pull request, it'll be merging coloring changes into, was it pulling, merging polling coloring changes to main Rutgers Grid. So I'm just gonna cheat a little bit. I'm not gonna fill in the rest of the info, but here it now put that together, and like, because we're Rutgers Grid, we can do the merge request.
Mm-hmm.
But because any student is not part of Rutgers Grid, they won't get this. They'll say that they've told us to grab it. So I hit merge pull request, confirm merge, and upstream now. Now Rutgers Grid has the same changes.
Okay.
It's like a weird slide. It's very procedural. It's very step by step, and like every so often, it's like, where am I? So what we ended up doing was we went from our machine to the social with XR origin, like that workspace, and then we pulled it up to the Rutgers Grid Burn seminar. So the workflow is way more convoluted than I wanted it to be. So we'll have to figure that one out. The other thing I think may be that because the way the class structure was, like if you had the repo and then you made an assignment, everybody got their own copy.
Yeah.
It's almost too fine-tuned. I want everyone to have their own copy, but we want them to be able to work together and merge their requests with each other.
Right.
That might have actually been the better way to do it. I still have time.
It's not too late.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the problem. These are steps to do the activity. And we're getting there. We're getting really close with this stuff. So there, that's my whole book report.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure, like, I'm going to have to edit some stuff up, get some things to the students so they have some tools.
Mm-hmm.
I have a meeting with Dan tomorrow about the strategy for the end of class stuff.
Okay.
So that would be good. And then I know in terms of time is really valuable to everybody at the moment. So I would like to do another working session with you. You know, like, of course, I want to do as many as I can, but given your schedule, figure if you have some open time, then I'll try to take advantage of it. And we got all of that promotion stuff to do too. So
yes,
so much stuff. But yeah, so it seems like I'm trying to cram a lot into this one credit class, but
yes, but it's fun stuff.
it's really cool. Yeah. All right. So I guess we'll catch up later. I'll be on chat and stuff.
Okay.
But
I should have another good hour or two tomorrow if you want to do another working session.
Okay, cool. Because I want to make sure, I want to try to get ahead of Dan on the needs for the class stuff. So, all right. I know I have a set of meetings galore tomorrow, but I'll find some time.
Okay.
All right then. Cool.
Sounds good.
Catch you later.
Bye.